Okay, well, welcome everyone. It's very exciting to have everyone here. This is going to be a lot of fun, I hope. It's very important. If you can't hear me, just go like that and I'll speak louder. I can see Alex sort of doing the... my voice is generally projects well because I'm the last of 7 kids. I'm going to ask everyone to turn the volume down on your radios so we don't have to hear the bleeping. And in fact, tonight we're actually not going to be using the radios yet. Tomorrow morning is going to be the full-on get those radios going. Much of what I go over tonight will probably be review for some of you. It'll be new for some other ones. Just to warn you, we will have continual interruptions from this guy over here by the name of Ed, because he's going to make sure we keep our terminology clean. Because over time, there's been a lot of use and misuse of words, and so he's going to be our what do we say? Grammar Nazi? Our grammar Nazi. There you go. So, quick introductions here, just so you know who we are. You met our fearless leader there, Sean, for the SRD, for Strathcona Regional District. And I just want to say thank you, Sean, for doing everything that you do, because if it hadn't been for your landing in this regional district, we would still be running around like feral squirrels. So thank you very much, Sean, for making this happen. Hey, buddy. Anyways. So we have three speakers who will be talking in this workshop. Myself, my name's Amanda Glickman, Victor Alpha 7 Golf Echo Quebec. We have Matt back here, Matthew Fox, Victor Alpha 7 Yankee Bravo Lima. And then we have Ed the Gorse, Victor Echo 7 Echo Delta. And we have his beautiful brains behind Laura in the back there. And Laura, I forget your call sign. VE7 Lima Kilo. So thank you guys. You guys are the brains of the operation. I'm just kind of trying to organize this a bit. We're going to have a quick introduction of who we are, and then I'd like to go around the room and get a name and who you are and who you're associated with. And I want you to think about this. We want to know on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5? 1 to 5. On how you rate yourself in terms of your knowledge base of packet radio. Okay? So my name's Amanda Glickman. Barry, my other half there, Victor Alpha 7 Golf Lima India. He and I have been coordinators for SRD emergency radio communications for about the past 3 years. That's why we're so happy to have Sean, because we were swimming in a mire of nothing until Sean arrived. My experience in radio actually goes back to about the year 2000. Barry and I were offshore sailors. We got our first amateur radio licenses, certifications in the United States. So I was actually Kilo Golf 6 Golf Echo Quebec in those days. That's why I kept the Golf Echo Quebec, because I'm too lazy to learn something else. And we used PACTOR radio heavily, because that was our primary communications as offshore sailors. Packet is still something that we're still learning. I rate myself as probably about a 2 on the scale of 5. I'm still learning. There's a lot to know in this. So I'm going to pass it over to Matt. Do you want to come up here for a second? You'll have to stand beside me. I've got the mic here. We need to have you tell everyone who you are.
Talking to the microphone?
Just talk and I'll hold the microphone.
Hi everybody, I'm Matthew Fox. I am from Campbell River. I grew up in Black Creek. I used to hang out in Victoria and Vancouver a little bit. My background is in information technology. I did a computer science degree and also a GIS diploma. My passions are the outdoors, technology, and helping people. I'm a ham of 7 months, 8 months?
He's a fast learner.
Last spring, yeah. I was immediately interested in being involved in the ECT. A lot of you fine people here. And also, packet radio really scratched my itch for having remote access to data, really. I'm a kind of a data nerd. I love databases and websites and system integrations and stuff like that. So I'm now the regional packet instructor?
Yep, he's taken on the role as our packet leader. And
that's
so we're training him up to be basically the ed of Strathcona Regional District. If it's possible to have that, Merrick can answer that question. Okay, and then Ed, our glorious packet guru, you'll have to come up here, Ed, because we have to catch you on camera. And of course, he had to be eating something at the time. I think Ed's been operating packet since its inception back in the Dark Ages.
You saying I'm old?
Ah, no.
No, just think you're very wise.
Smart man. Sorry, I'm just trying to choke down a chocolate bar. So I've been a ham for about 38 years. I started, a friend of mine who's no longer with us, V7 X-Ray Zulu, he decided that I should become a ham. So he forced me into it. He also forced my wife and did an exam on her practice one. She passed. Amazing. So anyways, I've been a ham for a long time. I've been an advanced amateur for the following year after I got my basic. That was back when you actually had to do something like draw diagrams and answer questions in long form and that. So in doing that, I got interested in data side of the world. Had one of the first AEA packet controllers to hit Canada. I picked it up in Linwood, Washington, so that's how long ago it was. I think in 1985 is when I started into packet radio. So it's kind of interesting, the longevity of packet radio, because in 1985 it was doing the same thing we do today. My background is I'm a licensed mechanic. I hold 3 tickets as a mechanic. That's what I did first. I then went to work for a cellular company. I was a service manager for Rogers. I was also a backup site tech for them for the cell site. So I got lots of involvement in repeater type sites and stuff. So I visited a lot of those sites. Then I left that because the way that the industry has changed with cell phones, and I worked for a company called RadioWorks Communication, which is a Motorola dealer. So I got to deal with going up to mountaintops, building police cars, doing all sorts of things from repairs to programming to you name it. Unfortunately, that came to an end because somebody decided to take out my 1980 GMC pickup truck, 4-wheel drive, 3/4 ton, with the 2000 Acura. So I ended up with a bit of a bad back and head injury and stuff and had a little trouble talking, but I think I've got over that.
I think you've exceeded it.
You're being taped, remember that. So we've done lots of, and I've been, with the City of Victoria, the Esquimalt, CRD. I'm currently the emergency radio coordinator for SUC. I also the CRD's radio network guy. I've put up a bunch of repeaters, lots of nodes everywhere, and node stacks and you name it. So I kind of been doing a lot of stuff over a long period of time. So what I make look easy, I know where you're sitting. I was there once.
And where do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5?
I want to hear what everybody else says.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we never found out what Matt rated himself as. 1. I think he knows a bit more than a 1, but... So this is the syllabus for the next 3 days. Tonight we're going to do the introduction. We're going to make sure that everyone's software is set up and operational. And just who's got Winlink Express set up, registered, and operational on their computers? Okay, who here doesn't? Okay, who here does not have a computer?
Not with us tonight.
Okay, but do you have one? Okay, so we need to make sure you're set up before tomorrow. Okay, and we also have a couple, we've got some with SRD that you can borrow. And so we'll get you sorted out by tomorrow morning. Because the goal here is to have as much hands-on as possible. For part of tomorrow, I'll be walking you through the software, and then Matt will run you through operations, and Ed's going to add all the detail pertaining to the previous 2 lectures. And then on Sunday, we're actually going to have a torture session of advanced and troubleshooting. So there's going to be a lot of material that we're going to go through. The first bit will probably be a little boring for some people. The Winlink software overview will just be an overview. We're going to walk through everything. If anyone's feeling a little lost or bogged down, say the word. Because the whole objective here is to make sure everyone learns everything to the best that they can. We have a lot of support here because we have a lot of experienced operators as well. And again, don't forget to have fun because we want to make sure everyone's enjoying this. So tomorrow will be modules 2, 3, 4, and 5, and Sunday will be 6, 7, and 8. So Sunday's the ed date. All right, we're also going to check any radios here that have not been checked for their deviation. Ed's brought his service monitor. Has anyone here got a radio that they brought? Or a packet system, I should say. Anyone got a packet system they brought? Okay, has it been checked for its deviation? Okay, do you have a Cantronic system? No. Okay, you don't count, sorry. Because we're focusing on the Cantronic system for some very specific reasons. It is our standard for the emergency program to use the Cantronics KPC 3+. You'll hear bits about why. If anyone read the workshop material, then you know. It's been a distinct choice that we've made. So do you have a laptop in front of you? Are Winlink Express and AirMail installed? Is it registered with the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation? The reason why we do this is because the Winlink team are all volunteers, and they need support, especially from emergency radio programs. If we want them to keep doing quality stuff, they need to be supported. And you can check in with Sean about that, because Sean has more information, because he may be able to provide some subsidy on that. Has it been properly configured? And you'll learn some of that tonight. Have you used it on Telnet? I have to run and hide before Ed hits me. Telnet is a cheat method. It doesn't use a radio. It goes directly to the internet. We use it up here sometimes for training, but we try not to be dependent on it, because if you become dependent on it, you'll never learn how to use the radio component, which is the part we need for emergency communications. So who here has actually used Winlink Express? Who here has actually used it on radios? Good, okay. Have you used it with packet or backdoor, and do you need help? Is anyone having troubleshooting problems? Okay, no, thank you for, Merrick's got both hands up. I'll put both hands up in a foot, right? So we're hoping that by the end of this, we all won't be calling Ed every 5 minutes, and he'll actually be able to sleep through the night. I'm sure that Laura will appreciate that. So a few definitions. As I said, Ed's going to be checking us in terms of our terminology, and you'll hear all of us will be misusing terminology. But for the purposes of describing how the system works, we have to understand what AWS is. It's the Amazon Web Server. Now the main CMS for WL2K. Okay, throw in some more acronyms just to confuse everyone. WL2K stands for the Winlink 2000 system, which is what we're using. It's a network. We're going to describe how that works in a moment. CMS stands for Common Message Server. We're going to describe what that is in a moment. MPS is a message pickup station. RMS is a radio message server. And an RMS gateway, another term that Ed absolutely loves, is an RMS that connects to the internet that gets a message to the CMS. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it converts it from the RMS to the CMS.
Basically, it's an entryway into the internet. Okay, Ed?
So now is when I jump in to give her a bad time about her terminology. Just to be really clear here, RMS, everything that Winlink does that's RMS is server-based. Winlink is a client-based software. RMS gateway the word gateway is a very generally used term, but in the words RMS gateway, I believe that is the Linux version of Winlink Express. So it's just one of those things. For packet radio, instead of RMS gateway, it should be called RMS packet. That's the packet side of it. Okay?
And you're going to see in the next diagram why I used RMS gateway. Yeah.
You're going to try.
No, I'm not going to try. Anyway, so how does it work? There's three sort of elements to this. Now this, if you go to the Winlink Express or the Winlink website, they have a very good video that introduces basically how the system works. But the problem is that video is a little out of date, so we're going to bring it a little up to date. But they divide things into 3 components, and this makes it much easier to understand. You've got your message type. So when you're sending a message out, it'll be one of 2 types. It'll be a Winlink message, or it'll be what's called a peer-to-peer, a P2P message. A Winlink message actually goes into the internet and uses the internet to send the message out. P2P is basically from one station to another station. It's peer-to-peer. Sometimes you can actually go through a couple of other stations that we call nodes. So you can actually hop, but effectively you're going from one station to a second station. Sometimes with a few intermediate things in between. We'll explain that in more detail in a minute. Message paths are basically the pathway that the message uses to get to this destination. And the message modes is how the message is being encoded and sent. All right? We really will focus on one mode, packet. But there are others. So Winlink is the internet. It uses an email address. For example, Victor Alpha 7 Golf Echo Quebec at winlink.org. And in the subject, it has to have the //WL2K in it, or the person who tries to respond to my email, their message will be rejected by the system. It's a method of spam control that Winlink uses, and Ed will explain this in more detail as he goes through the basic operations portion. Peer-to-peer, no internet. It's just station to station. So I would address my message just with my call sign, Victor Alpha 7 Golf Echo Quebec. No @Winlink or anything else. So if you were to think about this in terms of an analogy, and I'm sure that Ed will find a way to shred this, Winlink is like a postal mail office. So if you go to send a message, it's a centralized sorting location that your message goes to, which would be like the internet. I can send it one-to-one, so I could send my message to Paul, or I could send it to Paul, Lee, Steve, Dustin, Alex, anyone else in this room. I could have one message go to many. In the case of, the address is the email address. But in the case of peer-to-peer, the note is passed from one person to another. So it's like me taking a piece of paper and giving it to Dustin, right? And I might give it to him by using Paul to run to Dustin to give it to him, right? But you can see it's one person to one person, not one person to several people. That's the important point to make. So I know Dustin's name, I will address it Dustin. I won't put in a street address like I would with a postal message. So when you do email, you have the @winlink.org or @gmail.com. That's like a street address. It's telling it where to go. But with a P2P, I just have to know the name. And the name in this case is the call sign. Does that make sense? Okay. So how a message makes its way through the system is the routing. This is what I mean by message paths. The Winlink network, WL2K, uses the internet. Okay, it goes through their server systems, or used to. Peer-to-peer is direct. Radio only, fortunately we won't be talking about, but it can be Winlink or it can be P2P, and it can be message MPS. I don't know what that means. It can be MPS. Post office is if you're using a local area network, you can actually send messages to that network, and then you can send it through a radio that's connected on that network. These become more complicated systems. We don't use that here in SRD at this point, and so we're not going to cover that in this course. We're going to try and keep this as simple as possible. So we're focusing on Winlink and peer-to-peer in this workshop. So this is the Winlink Express diagram. This comes directly off their presentation. And that's why I use the term gateway, because that's what they use in here. Is everyone still with me? Okay. So the central message servers have now, or common message servers, have now been replaced by Amazon Web Servers. They still maintain one CMS in San Diego. This is the details behind the scene that you guys don't need to worry about, but you know, it's kind of fun trivia, and once in a while you get a message from Winlink saying such and such has changed. This is the sort of stuff that they were referring to. And in this workshop, we'll be focusing on peer-to-peer and Winlink. Okay? All right. You can see in the drop-down menu here, in open session, this represents all the different pathways that you could use. And as you'll see, I don't have my glasses on, but there's robust packet, there's Winlink, there's AirDop, there's Iridium Go, there's Winmore P2P, there's AirDop, there's all kinds of different systems. But once again, we will be focusing on Winlink and P2P, and in this workshop, packet and packet only. In the emergency program, we also use PACTOR. We'll save that for another workshop sometime in the future. Once you become familiar with the Winlink Express software, which we'll go over tomorrow, it's essentially, the software ends exactly the same. The only difference is in the hardware that you're working. So the modes are based on the hardware and frequency bands being used. Telnet is the cheat method that we use. We directly connect to the internet. We're not using radios. We only use that for training. Packet is VHF, short distance local. PACTOR, which is high frequency, it's long distance. Winmore, which is high frequency, it's HF. Its distance is based on sound cards. It's commonly known as the poor man's PACTOR, except it doesn't even compare with PACTOR. And then the post office. And post office is just, again, if you're using a local area network. Yes, Lee?
Can you send packet over UHF?
You can send packet over UHF, absolutely. And in fact, we have an MRIP kit here, which has both a VHF and a UHF side to it. Here in the Strathcona Regional District, we haven't had a need for UHF yet. Ed will explain, you can explain now or later on why we use UHF.
I can most certainly do that.
Okay.
You can actually use it on CB radio if you wanted to, because it just controls the audio. Good reason why to use UHF. In Victoria, give you an example, in Victoria, we got 17 EOCs that come on the air at the same time. So when each one takes a minute to send a message, you start doing the numbers, and there's got to be at least a period of time between to do it. So all of a sudden now you start to get collisions and you start to get congestion. So what we did in Victoria is we created, years ago, back when we first started, I went to the Pacific Northwest group at Tacoma Hamfest. We discussed what frequencies we could use and they could use, so we're not on top of each other. So what we did is we created 144.97, which is a common frequency for Vancouver Island. In Victoria, we also use 145.69. So we separated the network to two parts. So the municipality used one CRD and Stuk used the other. So that became less traffic on one frequency. When you got packet running in your EOC, and you got your radio voice, and somebody's sending you something, your packet goes to transmit, your radio gets desensed and goes quiet for a period of time, comes back again. So the guy you're talking to is all of a sudden, why do you stop talking in the middle of mid-sentence? So what we did is we then turned around, we added UHF, 441.25. So then, with the UHF radio barking away on packet, VHF was clear, or vice versa. So then we ended up, one more step to that, we added a node stack. So you can go in on VHF and come out UHF, we go in UHF, come out VHF. So you're the best of both worlds. Okay?
Thank you.
Do you
Excellent.
use higher bandwidth on UHF as well?
Say that again?
On UHF, are you using higher bandwidth?
No, we've stayed with 1200 baud.
So the question was, on UHF,
Yeah.
Are you using higher bandwidth?
are you using higher bandwidth? I'm being recorded here, so I have to repeat everyone's questions, and I have to
It
stay by
helps me because I can't
Ed.
hear where the hoots on. The reason why we never went to 9600 on UHF, because that's what the next step would be, is because of the radio equipment. At the time when we did all of this, having something work on UHF, and we did it tried with old grape modems and stuff like that, so we just decided it was going to be 1200 throughout the whole network, and we decided to tune all of the TNCs to radios, and we increased the network speed by 25%. So it was just one of those things, and because we're near water, we're near mountains, we get a lot of multipath, we get lots of problems, and 1200 baud is a little easier to accept those.
Does anyone here not remember what desensing is? Don't be shy. You want? Okay, desensing.
Okay, desensing. If you have two radios, I did an experiment for one of the fellows for EMBC. We had one radio on to a local repeater, and I had my handheld on low power. And he's talking, or he's listening to somebody talking, and I keyed the handheld on 100 milliwatts, and it wiped out the radio. He didn't hear the guy. That's what desense is. So a strong or closer, weaker signal can take out a 100-watt repeater. And it's all about closeness.
There you go.
And you'll hear me talk about that same thing with digital later on.
Proximity, yes.
Just a quick question.
Paul, yeah.
So on the net 3-4 months ago, Neil wasn't able to communicate on VHF, so he switched to UHF.
Yep.
Took a few minutes. So that's the mode. It automatically converts over and transmits. So he was using his UHF equipment, and then we received it on VHF.
Yeah, so he would have.
So that's the same system?
It very well could have been, yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Was there oh, sorry, Sean.
So if I thought of a node stack like a crossband repeater, is that
So Sean's question is a node stack kind of like a crossband repeater?
Basically, yes, it is. It's two radios, and what the difference is, like if you had a Yaesu radio that's capable of crossband, you set the two frequencies and you put in crossband, and that's it. Very similar what happens on a node stack, but the difference becomes you can come in on VHF and go out VHF. You can come in VHF, go out UHF. You can go in UHF, come out UHF. You can go in UHF, come out VHF. So it's more versatile than a crossband repeat, but the idea is very much the same.
Okay.
Is that confusing enough?
no, I wish someone told me that 6 months ago.
You're almost confused.
Sean's comment is he wishes somebody had told him that 6 months ago.
So what you're talking about is basically a digipeater.
Okay, so the question is, what you're talking about is basically a digipeater, and I just want to know duck.
It's one of my pet peeves of this. Now, I'll just explain the difference in a digipeater and a node to start with. A digipeater is something that happened a long time ago. That's why he's been around for a long time. We basically don't use it. It's one of the most inefficient ways to do it, where a node is much more efficient from a network standpoint.
Did everybody get the pre-workshop notes? Okay, there's an explanation in there as to why. Basically, bottom line is KNet networks are way more efficient and better error correction than digipeating. Yeah. Or you can ask Ed later on.
I will.
He'll be well behaved. Okay. Yeah. All right, so as I said before, we're just going to be talking about Telnet and Packet. We won't be worrying about Pactor, Winmore, or any of the other ones right now. Okay, so we're going to just switch directions here a minute. Everybody here in the emergency communications program has to remember to have your emergency communications plan, right, Merrick? Absolutely. Because Merrick is hounding us right now with the Mid-Island Emergency Radio Coordination Team to get our communication plans together. And we're starting out with a basic building block, something called an ICS 205. Instant Command System, which is a system that we use to organize ourselves. And the form is a 205, and it basically puts down, just in columns, how we're going to use the frequencies that we have access to and who we plan on speaking to. And eventually, you can put up something more graphic. This is what I did for Cortez Island about 3 years ago, so it's grossly out of date. But something that is easily digested and visual. Merrick, you had a question, you had a statement.
Just a comment. So this is valuable for communications, but it's known as a connectivity diagram or a network diagram. This is a add-on or an adjunct to your ICS 205, which we're working on getting developed for everybody.
Exactly. So what I start with is the ICS 205, which is our go-to document. And then we can draw pretty pictures like this just to make it more visual. This is not ideal either. It has its problems. And maybe later on, Ed can show us a little bit about what Souk does. Each regional district will develop a system that works for its own, but what's important is that we're able to use a standardized system, the ICS 205, to understand overall what happens with our adjacent jurisdictions. And here's another important one. You can't really read this, but you'll get a copy of this later. This is the Winlink deployment plan that Ed had given me a while ago. I don't know if it's still up to date, but we need to have these plans for all of our volunteers so we know when we are deployed, what we do step by step. And it's good to have simple things like turn on the lights, because you'd be amazed at what you forget about during a disaster. Okay, and switching once again, we all have Winlink Express installed in our computers. Make a backup copy. Under the root directory on your computer, under C, you'll find a folder called RMS Express. Make a copy of it and put it on a USB stick, because guess what? You can actually run it from a USB stick. The advantage of doing that is if during a disaster your computer goes sideways, you can just take it, plug it into a different computer, configure the COM ports, and off you go. You'll learn how to do that sort of stuff. Yes, Ed's pointing his little USB stick at me. And his Coke can.
So for the volunteers, if you haven't gotten that USB stick from me, please let me know and I'll get it to you. And when you register your call sign with Winlink, please send me the receipt and I'll have you reimbursed.
So Sean says, if you haven't received your USB stick, contact him, and once you've registered your Winlink, your call sign on the Winlink system, hold on to your receipt and give it to him and he'll reimburse you. So, is everybody ready for this workshop? Do you have Winlink installed? Is it properly set up? And have you registered your call sign? It sounds like most people here have. If you haven't, we will go through the motions this evening so that you can walk through everything together with us this weekend. And anybody here with a radio that needs to be checked using the service monitor, we have a couple of SRD radios that we want to have checked. And Ed is going to give us a live demo on how that goes. All right, so that's it for the lecture. We're going to take a 2-minute break. Okay, Ed, you've got something to say?
Out of anybody, has anybody tuned their TNC deviation levels?
Aha.
How did you do it, Mark? Did you do it with a service monitor?
I didn't even do it with my service.
No, I could do it though.
Oh, of course you could, yeah.
We've had, SRD has had most of their systems tested by Ed. But it would be really nice if we can all learn how to do this so that we can leave Ed alone. And I'm sure Laura would appreciate that.
No, then I'd be with her and then she'd be bugging her instead of you guys.
So, yes, Paul.
Well, once they're tuned up, do they tend to stay that way, or is
Yes.
it an ongoing problem?
They stay that way.
They pretty much stay that way.
SRD people, you will notice on our kits, like the one that Steve has in front of him, there's a little sticker that says XMIT, and it's got a number. That is on the radio itself or on the TNC, so you have to open the box. That is a very important number. This is why we pair the TNC with the radio, because the TNC is then programmed specifically for that radio. You're going to learn how to do this on Sunday. That's the process we're about to go through. We're going to make a measurement on the radio using an ideal decibel reading. I don't know what the formal, I've forgotten what the formal term for that is. And that number gets put into the TNC so that they operate efficiently together. If the transmit level is not correct in the software on the TNC, you may never make a connection. Okay, so it's very important to do this, and many people don't. And that's the heart of many people's problems when it comes down to packet. So we're going to take a couple minutes break. I think there still might be some food left, everyone, and there's some coffee. And then Ed's going to set up the service monitor here.
Or
And,
I'll bring it maybe to where they are. That
okay, whichever is easier. And then we're going to make life difficult for our camera person because now he's going to have to travel. All right, so 5-minute break, everyone.